But moving on, Ghana has condemned what it describes as the abduction of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores by the United States in the early hours of Saturday, January 3, 2026. In a strong statement, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Ghana is alarmed by the unilateral and unauthorized action, stressing that such conduct violates the United Nations Charter, international law, and the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of states. Ghana said it is closely monitoring developments in Venezuela with deep concern and has called for an immediate de-escalation of tensions and the release of President Maduro and his wife. Let's take a look at that statement from the Foreign Affairs Ministry signed by the Minister. According to that statement signed by Okujeto Ablakwa, it says Ghana expresses strong reservations against unilateral use of force and strongly deplores such acts that violates the Charter of the United Nations and international law, as well as the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of states. The Ghanaian government is keenly following the situation in Venezuela with great concern and notes that such assaults on international law, attempts at the occupation of foreign territories, and apparent external control of oil resources have extremely adverse implications on international stability and the global order. Ghana also notes with deep concern statements by U.S. President Donald Trump that the U.S. will run Venezuela until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition, and that U.S. large oil companies will be asked to go in. These declarations, according to Ghana, are reminiscent of the colonial and imperialist era. They set a dangerous precedent for the global order. Such colonial ambitions should have no place in the post-Second World War era. To allow this is to put the international community at great risk and undermine the sovereignty of every country. Ghana therefore reaffirms its commitment to the principle of self-determination and holds the firm view that only the Venezuelan people should freely determine their political and democratic future. Ghana calls for immediate de-escalation and the release of President Maduro and his wife. The government of Ghana shall maintain and defend its long-held principled position against invasion, occupation, colonialism, apartheid, disregard for sovereignty, and all forms of violation of international law. Well, to get us to understand more on this, we'll be speaking to Maxwell Sarabediakwe Esquire. He's an adjunct lecturer at the Kempa Law School for International Criminal Law. And also, we have on the line with us Professor Appiah-J. and he's also joining us, and he's also a guru in international law. We're grateful for your time, sir.
Thank you for having me. The name is Appiah-J.
Appiah-J. Thank you for that. Well, with this situation currently ongoing, Ghana has made a very strong statement on it. Let's start from the U.S. Is this act by the U.S. illegal?
Definitely illegal. It violates the UN Charter. It violates various principles of international law, which may not be specifically mentioned in the UN Charter, but forms part of customary international law.
Right. And so, with this situation, what then is it? I mean, does it mean that Ghana, a small country like Ghana, making such a strong statement against, the United States in this situation, is it safe for Ghana? If for the lack of a better expression, is this safe for Ghana to make such a statement against the United States?
Yes, definitely. Ghana is a member of the United Nations, and the United Nations Charter is clear that what the U.S. has done is in violation of the UN Charter because it constitutes aggression. It constitutes an armed attack on a sovereign state. And the president, the president who was captured, enjoys immunity as the head of state of a sovereign country. So the processes involved in having him captured and taken to the U.S. to face trial for on those narcotic charges are violently in violation of international law. So Ghana, as a member of the international community, did the right thing, and I commend the president for taking that bold initiative to come out and condemn the act. And the language is also diplomatic. It is not insulting or done in a manner as to violate the sovereignty of the U.S. in any way. So as a member of the UN, Ghana has the right to do that, and I commend the government for doing that. As to whether there may be any implications on the country, I think it's any act the UN against Ghana for responding to such a situation will also violate international law.
But can Ghana afford to, take any fallout from this from the U.S., even though it will go against international law? And the action by the U.S. now shows that they do really care about what will happen, especially that they are not ratified to the UN Charter.
Of course, if Ghana, U.S. wants to attack Ghana or to strangle Ghana or do anything that may affect the relationship between the two countries, U.S. has the power to do that. It has the muscle to squeeze Ghana, and Ghana may be the loser in the end. But Ghana is saying that might is not right, and that's what the U.S. has done. Somebody has to speak against it. A number of countries have been quiet. Even the EU have been dilly-dallying. They don't know clearly what to say against what has happened in Venezuela. But somebody has to come out boldly and speak against that. And in any case, Ghana is not a one-way relationship that may only affect Ghana if the U.S. decides to do something against the country. So U.S. will be careful in trying to take any step that may affect that relationship.
Right. Also joining us is Maxwell Harry Esquire. He is with Gimpa Law School. We're grateful for your time, Maxwell, joining us in this conversation. Can a powerful country lawfully abduct a sitting president without a UN mandate?
Thank you very much for the question. I'll just go straight to it. Please, can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly.
Yes, I'll just go straight to it and then say that, no, you can't do that because under this circumstance, we are all operating under the UN Charter. So once you are part of the United Nations Charter, you've signed it, you're a party to it, you are supposed to abide by the dictates of it. So you cannot just use your might and then your muscles to just go around bullying people around. If you do that, you'll be breaching international law. And that is exactly what the United States they've done.
Right. So with this situation, what then happens to the United States? Can any action be taken against the United States?
Oh, yes, of course. Once they've breached international law, they can be held accountable for it. But the point is that, you see, most of the time, these things come with its own politics. Because the United States is not a party to the Rome Statute. When we talk about the Rome Statute is the law that governs the processes, the procedure, or that also talks about the substantive law. When you breach it, you now activate the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. Then they will come in and then deal with you. But then because the United States is not a party to the treaty, the only way that U.S. can be held accountable is when the United Nations Security Council pass a resolution that indeed what U.S. has done is wrong. And for that matter, we have to halt the President of the United States before the ICC to come and then answer why he has to invade another sovereign state. So they can do it. But then the point is, would the United Nations Security Council be willing to do it, especially so when the U.S. is also part of the United Nations Security Council and also have that veto power, of which he can also make use of it at any point in time.
Right. Prof, let me come to you. So in this situation, is this an act of aggression, or this is just, an implementation of the laws of U.S., saying that they've given an explanation that the Venezuelan president is dealing in drugs, in drug trade, and that's hampering the U.S. relations with them?
Well, the U.S. is arguing that it is acting in line with international law on the principle of self-defense. But that is a very, very weak argument the U.S. is making, because Article 51 of the UN Charter allows for self-defense, but only where there is an armed attack against you. What the U.S. is arguing is trafficking, drug trafficking. And drug trafficking is one of the grounds that can constitute self-defense. And even if it is, there has to be certain steps that the Venezuelan government should have taken, which will justify the aggression that the U.S. visited on that country and justify the of self-defense. Number two, where it's not an attack, there could also be a situation where it is anticipated that the country is trying to attack you, and that if you don't attack first, you may be wiped out before there is opportunity for you to engage in self-defense. That has not been established in the case with the U.S. And so that law recognizes that every head of state is immune from prosecution. So you enjoy prosecution within your own country, as well as even when you are outside your own country. All these international law principles have been violated by the UN, by the U.S. So they don't have any grounds for attacking Venezuela. And so all the excuses they are giving do not fly. It's just a show of power. And it even going to the extent of saying that it will rule Venezuela. In other words, this is a process of annexation or colonization. And it is the very principle that the U.S. is accusing Russia of doing against Ukraine. And it is going to pave the way for China, for example, to decide to attack Taiwan, because it is on this same principle that China can also use to justify attacking Taiwan. So it sets a very bad precedent for a rule-based order which has worked not perfectly, but has managed to contain conflicts and so on in the past generations. So it is a very bad precedent that is why it's important for countries to condemn it, so that it will not go beyond Venezuela, because Trump has already entered that he may use it again in Venezuela, in Iran and other places. And that is setting a very bad precedent which other countries may also use. And you cannot then condemn it because it seems to be the new norm that is emerging.
Well, Prof, let me ask you again. I mean, just to get clarity on this, what does it mean, or what do you make of the statement issued by Ghana, especially with a section of Ghanaians in the public urging government to be quiet to safeguard our diplomatic relations?
Is it directed at me?
Yes, Prof.
Oh, no, I think what Ghana is doing is the right thing to do. The UN Charter allows member states to criticize other member states where they violate the UN Charter. It's one of the means of bringing attention to a violation of international law. So what Ghana is doing the right thing. And so Ghana should be supported. I think the AU has been too quiet in responding. The AU also has to respond.
Well, ECOWAS has come up with a statement as well.
Sorry?
ECOWAS has come up with a statement as well.
Yes, which is very positive. I'm not aware of that, but it's a very positive development from ECOWAS. Because we are all targeted. We are all, one way or the other, vulnerable. What happened in Nigeria even though Nigeria came out to say it was a collaborative thing. In actual fact, it was a U.S. decision to do that. And so, if we are not careful, Nigeria may be a victim here. Nigeria could be attacked if it had not responded in that conciliatory tone. And so it's setting a very bad precedent which needs to be condemned. And it's not something that the U.S. can continue doing without anybody mentioning it and keeping quiet.
Right. Let me come to you, Maxwell. It looks like we're witnessing the collapse of rules based on international order in favor of power politics. And in this situation, if the UN doesn't act, is it still relevant?
Supposed to act because the highest decision-making body with regards to the UN is the General Assembly, so they can come out with a decision or a resolution that what US has done is wrong, and for that matter, they have to be held before the UN to answer questions or be dealt with. Or better still, they can also try and then talk with the United Nations Security Council to halt the president, because honestly, what US has done is a total breach of international law, and it is also sin against what international law, because you realize that what US did, it's totally a crime of aggression. It is totally a crime of aggression, because when you look at the United Nations Charter itself, the Article 2, Clause 4, it talks about the fact that countries are supposed to refrain from what? The use of force. And when you come to the Rome Statute that tries to govern the operations of the International Criminal Court, it talks about the fact that if you are defining crime of aggression, the use of force is also part of it. Once you use the force, you use your military to invade other people's territorial waters, other people's sovereignty and territory, it amounts to what? Crime of aggression. So for me, I think that the United Nations, they are supposed to take on the US. Because if they fail to do that, I think it will be a floodgate for other powerful states to also do whatever that they like. So for me, I think that it is high time that the United Nations really take drastic measures against the US, regardless of the fact that, when it comes to their various organizations, the US contributes to them, especially with the Red Cross and then World Health Organization and all those things. Forget about what US has been providing for them. Once they sin against international law, they are supposed to be dealt with, regardless.
Well, thank you very much, Maxwell Asaribedeako Esquire. He's with the Gimpa Law School and teaches international criminal law. We're also joined by Professor Appiagyei Chia. Prof, we're grateful for your time as well. This is Joy News Desk. We'll be right back with business.
You're welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us. I am Michelle Ejekum. Now let's settle for some business stories. Now, businesses have begun adjusting prices downward on VAT chargeable goods and services following the implementation of new VAT reforms and the revision of selected tax rates from last Friday. We have more in the following report.
Our checks over the weekend in terms of goods bought from some shops show that they were indeed not charging the COVID-19 levy, as well as the effective rates of VAT dropping to 20%, a development resulting in prices going down on the market. These reductions are coming at a time that there have been concerns about whether a lot of firms can calibrate their systems early enough to implement these reductions. Telecoms giant MTN has also announced that it has dropped the price on all of its tariffs on products that charges VAT due to the implementation of these tax reforms. Based on the implementation of these reliefs, the expected taxes to be paid on items bought on the market has dropped from almost 22% to 20% in terms of the VAT to be paid. According to government, this move should put some 6 billion Ghana cedis in the pocket of businesses. Registered businesses can now claim an input tax on the National Health Insurance Levy as well as the GET Fund. Prospective mining would also not attract VAT, and there will be no VAT on locally produced textiles till 2028. The Ministry of Finance believes that these tax reliefs will help boost collection so that it can end the year meeting its revenue target.
Away from that, Bank of Ghana is set to sell up to $1 billion to the market for this month as part of its foreign exchange intermediation program. Now, this is what Joy Business has picked up from persons with knowledge of the central bank's Forex auction initiative. There's details in the following report.
The Bank of Ghana, in the notice to traders seen by Joy Business, noted that this dollar support should be purely seen as part of its broader intermediation program. It noted that this should help deal with the expected volatility when the needs arises. The central bank is going ahead with this intermediation after selling up to $721 million in December 2025, slightly down from its initial target of $800 million. On the dollar supply for the rest of the year, the Bank of Ghana was quick to add that subsequent monthly intermediation will be guided by prevailing market conditions. The first quarter of this year has always been challenging for the Ghana cedi as businesses demand more dollars to help restock, as well as listed companies and banks trying to settle investors outside the country in terms of dividend payment. Many will be looking forward to see how things will be handled this time round in terms of managing the expected depreciation. According to the Bank of Ghana, the cedi appreciated by some 40% against the dollar for last year. It has even been classified by some international media groups as the fourth best performing currency in Africa.
Now, also, government recorded a 19% oversubscription of Treasury bills for the 5th consecutive week. That's according to auction results by the Bank of Ghana. Meanwhile, interest rates surged at the shorter end of the market.
The government received about 4.7 billion Ghana cedis of the bid, but accepted a little over 4.72 billion Ghana cedis of the short-term instrument. The target for the auction was estimated at 3.9 billion Ghana cedis. A little over 40% of the bid came from the 91-day bill. About 1.948 billion Ghana cedis of the bid were tendered. The uptake was 1.943 billion Ghana cedis. For the 182-day bill, 1.10 Ghana cedis of the bid were tendered. The bids accepted were estimated to the tune of 1 billion Ghana cedis. Similarly, 1.60 billion Ghana cedis of the bids were tendered for the 364-day bill. 1.26 billion Ghana cedis of the bids were accepted. Meanwhile, interest rates surged across the shorter end of the market. The yield on the 91-day bill increased by 7 basis points to 11.16%. That of the 182-day bill also went up to 12.55% from 12.52% the preceding week. However, the yield on the 364-day bill declined by a basis point to 12.93%.
And that's all for business right here on Joy News Desk. But there's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Instance is a story on government seeks 7.5 billion from domestic markets. There's more when you log on right there on myjoyonline.com. I am Michelle Lejakum. Mamiesi.
Thank you, Michelle. Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you
good to
too.
be back. And that's all we have for you on this edition of Joy News Desk. We'll be back tomorrow with more.